Good morning, everybody. My name is Bill Apker. I head up sales globally for M&C Software. Glad you can join us. Today we have our team members, our great team members that keep the bus rolling down the road with us today to kind of talk about what Mosaic 10 is and what it really means. So please welcome Joel Bradenson. He's our head of development. Joel?
Yeah, I'm the director of software engineering here at M&C Software. I've been with the company for almost 11. Yeah, ever. It's going to be 11 years in November or 12 years in November.
12.
Yeah, 12 years in November. So yeah, been around a while. Been doing started with development from before the product even existed, and basically we took the product from ground up all the way to here. And it's been quite an interesting journey. It's been good.
Very good. Thanks, Joel. And we also bring in Paul Mueller, who's more of on our customer and project side, heads up, basically talking to the customers, probably because he's a little more pretty than Joel is, and that's probably better for people. Paul, you want to say hello?
Sure. Hi. Yeah. So I'm the director of professional services here at M&C Software. I've known the company for a very long time, been dealing with them, but my background's about 15 years in network design and broadcast architecture. So definitely been dealing with monitoring for all of my career, and it's been really exciting and fun to join the team at M&C Software and take those chops and apply it to other companies.
Awesome. Yeah, Paul's directly responsible for a lot of our customer successes with the help of the team that sits behind him. And it's been really great. And of course, we have David Allen, our CEO, and also the guy gets his hands dirty on a daily basis, trying to make sure that we all do what we're supposed to be doing, sort of.
Dave. In fact, that's why I'm here today, to make sure you all,
It's not a vacation day?
What's that?
It's not a vacation. Oh.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people know who we are. I've been working with. We just last week celebrated our 13th anniversary in business. As Joel said, we built Mosaic from the ground up. We're celebrating Mosaic 10, kind of what we're our discussion today, going through all of the new features. Mosaic 10 was a major release, and that was both from the software development side, but also the professional services side, as we'll talk about in a bit. As some of our long-term customers I see on, we do major releases about once a year with, minor releases through the year, usually some minor fixes. We encourage our customers to take at least one release a year because we support back a full year. Today we're going to talk about a lot of the new features. It was a monster release. Quite the evolution in the web, but also quite the evolution in professional services. And hopefully interesting to everybody, and learn a bit about what's come out and prepare for your upgrades.
And I think that's a great point, Dave. Mosaic 10 was a monster, and all of our software development, or Dave, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, most of our software development is driven from customers because they're the ones on the front lines trying to keep their stations up and going. I mean, you could talk a little bit about that, Dave, about how Mosaic 10 is really derived from customer input.
So a lot of our customers, started to move away from a NOC standpoint. And so that, big push obviously is mobile. So, we've had a, web application for quite a while, but it was always more of a secondary. So your guys at the office can look at it, whereas Mosaic was primarily, used at the NOC. But, as things have progressed, and then obviously coinciding with that, the pandemic, everything became remote. So it kind of, filtered into all of that. And really, we are also moving it into more of a collaborative application. So we'll talk about it later, but some of the ways we've integrated with different additional applications that people are using every day. And again, coinciding with the pandemic have become even more important. But then the other side, some of the things that Paul touched on is, the movement of broadcast outside of, directly plugging two things together, more your IT approach, and how that's become, your ecosystem has now grown. You're not just monitoring your broadcast equipment, your switches are involved. A lot of customers previously, they've monitored facilities at uplink sites, but now they're server room facilities. And so, making it more of a, complete end-to-end monitoring system, so basically drop out of the box to tie in all of your equipment and facilities and all that into one big picture.
And that's such a great statement, Dave. I always talk about, and I love history of television. It's one of the more unique industries that we're all involved in. Television or radio is a little bit different. Just television without pictures. But the history of television is, they had, and some of our guys online will remember this. In the beginning, there was boxes, and those boxes had LED lights. And then at some point in time in the 80s, they actually started talking at least a little bit to us. And now that we've come to, 2021, everything should be talking to us and giving us detailed reports on everything. And having now, and as you mentioned, 2020 was a big push for a lot of us. And Joel, maybe you can speak a little bit about, what we've done in the web to be able to bring people that are now not allowed in their buildings anymore into the facility or out of the facility into their homes, and bringing Mosaic into their homes and all the control they need.
Absolutely.
So
yeah. Sorry,
if I may, and Joel, I wanted to tee this up a bit. I wanted to make sure we don't go too long before I say this, because a lot of customers may not realize this. And as a customer of you guys for a while, this was something that I always excited me, was that on the development side, when you guys when we do the release, it's not just all the customer stuff. It's also stuff for us as well, for development and services that we've been looking forward to. And what people may or may not be aware of is that we use a lot of open source components too. I mean, like any good software stack, you don't want to reinvent a wheel that's already been made. And Joel, you can definitely speak to this, but simple things like somebody, comes and asks as a customer, hey, do you support MariaDB, 10.5, 10.6? Like, these are things that we always say yes to, because we do our due diligence in every major release. We make sure our underlying components are being upgraded as well. And those underlying components have security fixes and patches and all the other stuff that goes along with it. So something that customers may never see, as in like, hey, I used to run MariaDB 10 or MySQL 5, and now it just seamlessly works as they upgrade to a newer open source platform. Underlyingly on our side, in the development side, we're always keeping lockstep pace with development of new components or taking open source components and applying it to Mosaic, which benefits the customer greatly, but they tend, like, it's not as flashy or as known because the customers just see it work.
Yeah, that's a great point, Paul. I mean, and Joel, you can speak to, some of the major things that we've done in the background to continue for us to be moving forward as opposed to being stale.
Absolutely.
I think the web would be the answer here.
Yeah, I mean, well, the web and the desktop both, and the server throughout our entire software product. One of the interesting things, Dave came on, I remember the original meeting we had with him, and one of the original statements is, if everything goes well, you'll never see me again. And for a lot of customers, that's the case, because a lot of the upgrades and software and everything we do in the background is, some of it is completely user facing, like I'll get to for the web, where it's absolute visual impact. You can see this happening. But there is lots and lots and lots of stuff in the background, which are tools, support features, making things easier to, get your data and visualize your data, that unless you're a DIY customer who wants to completely do it themselves, you may never actually see nor care about it. And this may be just something that services really uses, but everything services uses is documented and available for a customer to use. You could go either way. But yeah, we do a lot of those things in the background. So a lot of times it's, hey, hopefully you'll never see me again, because it will just work for you. But specifically in the web, there was a lot of both ends of it, where we have a lot of back end updates and a lot of front end updates for it. So specifically for the actual framework that we utilize for the actual web client, that has completely been upgraded to the latest standards. So, from a technical standpoint, we use a system called Angular for most of our front end development. And there's a whole large transfer to a new system, but really the highlight of it is the better security, more feature support, and everything like that. But also always utilizing the latest web standards, also utilizing the latest tech stacks that allow you to seamlessly backport to older browser versions. I mean, the key here is we don't want to control a plugin or a browser or anything like that. It's your browser, your choice. You do it. And we just want it to work. So a lot of these new frameworks we utilize, a lot of these development pipelines we use are completely around the concept that we want to just make it work, whatever browser you're using, whatever system you're using, and just allow it in there. And with any of those new features, we're able to connect in and get a lot of these new graphical components and utilize the latest tech stacks and access this data. So going back a long time in web, streaming real-time data was a large problem. You'd have to use some kind of plugin. I mean, back in the day, you might use ActionScript and Flash and stuff because they actually had these components. Nowadays, WebSockets and notification frameworks and everything like that. Hey, I got streaming data. So it's constantly keeping up because you don't want to, fall behind and lose these feature sets. And then just from the back end, okay, yes, you got all these new updates. And then from a front end standpoint, now we have, this new, especially for the web, a new layout system that is much more flexible, allow you to put any of your components anywhere you want, any of your widgets anywhere, new widgets in the system. One of the big themes for our web upgrade and system upgrade in general was visualization of your data. We kind of went with two themes for Mosaic 10, accessing your data and visualization for your data. And the visualization for your data aspect is all about, all about not only seeing what type of little data points you want, but also in the manner you want to see it in there.
Yeah. Just a minute, Paul. So that's a great point. And I think that when people, just to clarify, when Joel talks about web, what he's talking about is HTML5. Because HTML5 is such a very useful, would you call it, a plugin or application? Something like that.
It's a standard.
Web standards, you're compatible with.
So when he talks about your web browser, that web browser can span your desktop, your laptop, your phone, your tablet. It doesn't really matter what it is. And Paul, you can speak to what that means to customers, because in the end, that's what a guy standing on top of a mountain wants to see. He doesn't have his laptop sitting next to him. He has his phone that is going, oh, that's an alert. Let me see if I can change that, right?
I'm actually going to jump in this one because I actually have a customer in Australia, because a lot of people do people ever really use Mosaic on a phone? We have a customer in Australia who basically put together a web layout for a transmitter switching system, and we sized it to the phone, and anybody can connect from their phone and see the exact, a transmitter site all in one go.
Yeah, and one of the nice things with the layout system that we upgraded for the web was to be able to, be responsive to sizes of your screen. So auto resize. So if you're on a phone, you can take the exact same layout. If you haven't had a chance to make a specialized layout, you can take the exact same layout and it will automatically change it from this, giant 4x4 box layout or something like that down to a scrollable individual. But we also, like many sites, you can switch over to your desktop view to see your original view. But also we added a customized automatic resize to fit that you can turn on. So when you're transferring to different devices, I'm going from my monitor at work to my laptop screen at the coffee shop. Well, COVID, maybe not. But with, your tablets and, various other devices, you can have it auto resize fit, have the exact same layout, but, shrinks things down a little bit or makes them grow a little bit. So the idea is we want you to have seamless transition from device to device. We want you to be able to go and see the exact same screens you have over in the other place. And this kind of goes, the same theme goes, it's probably a little bit early to talk about, but for our kiosk mode, the idea is you want to be able to have the same access to data and views anywhere you're looking at. So if you're switching devices or you have an office that you're walking down a hallway and you want to have a monitor, in the hallway or something like that, or a kiosk somewhere, or you want to just be sharing links with people and with, certain specific layouts for, some kind of monitoring setup. So one of the other updates we did was adding the ability to have a specialized API key login for a kiosk style connection, which basically this means you can set up your own authorization control for these, set up, restrict it down by host, restrict it down by login count, restrict it down by server, or, permissions, read only. And then you can set up specific layouts for it. And then just here's a URL. Connect to it, opens up that application, resizes to whatever monitor it's on, and you have your visualization of whatever data you want. So you can have kind of customized little bespoke displays and just instant links to those. And the beautiful thing about the web, the beautiful thing about just using the HTTP protocol and connections with this, it doesn't matter where your server is, and there's no installation of anything anywhere. As long as you have a browser, which most things do, you have that connection. So, I mean, if you're running a local Mosaic install, a cloud Mosaic install, something on Amazon, something on Azure, it doesn't really matter where Mosaic's sitting at that moment, as long as you have that URL to it. So it just makes it really easy to get access to your data anywhere you want and set up the screens and visualization of your data that you want where you want it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I am super excited. I was ecstatic like a kid on Christmas when we were talking about kiosk mode. So for those who don't know me very well, people always want to show like the reports that can be run, all the statistics and analytics that can come out of Mosaic. And it always fits in a nice report. It can be emailed to your bosses or be used to figure out your SLAs. But I personally love interactive dashboards, and that's just me. And I love seeing those interactive dashboards. And I would much more prefer to share a Mosaic, deep link using this kiosk mode to my management, or to have it sitting back when people used to go to the office, sitting in front of an elevator that could outline all of your meeting SLAs, all of your high-level metrics and statistics, all just there for you to consume without having to wait for the weekly email or wait for the time that everybody says, "Hey, did you get your reports out yet?" You don't have to worry about that. Like, I can now see trends in my data. I'm not looking for a particular percentage. Mosaic can show you the whole picture of saying, here's your nominal state, here's your non-nominal state, and here's the progression of that over time. And all of that is interactive and in these live dashboards, and Kiosk kind of brings that to everybody. You don't have to be a frontline engineer. You don't have to be a NOC technician. Your business level, BI level, management layer can just look at that data and just consume it in such a way that they can make better business decisions around their contracts or around business initiatives. And Mosaic presents that all. I mean, that'll save you time and money where you didn't know you needed to save time and money.
I think that's a great point, Paul. We don't talk enough about the reporting side of things in Mosaic, and I think that's really useful. I mean, we have customers, and Dave Stewart's online, so we can talk about him, and he can't talk back, which is great. Just kidding, Dave. But Dave is one of the things that he does, and I know you're very, very involved in Nebraska public media development or helping them get where they need to go. But Dave has told us many times that he uses the reports that come out of Mosaic so much, and they're so helpful because it's a click or it's automatic to get it to do what you need to do.
Which Paul's like, yeah, but that's interactive.
But I mean, but it's a good concept, because anytime somebody says to me, and a customer, or we're talking, and they were like, well, can you do this report? My immediate thought goes to, yeah, okay, you can have that report, and it's totally easy to do. And I think that kind of speaks to the pedigree of Mosaic, right? Like for those, I'm relatively new in MNC software, but I actively sought out employment here because I had dealt with Mosaic for many years. And
dealt with sounds like you had to,
I enjoyed it for many years because it allowed such a flexibility. You have software developers and others going, well, I'm going to use this free open source piece of software over here. And I'm like, yeah, but it only takes one little slice. And what the great thing about Mosaic is that you don't have to choose between this piece of monitoring gear and this piece of monitoring gear. As Mosaic's pedigree is such that it can just intertwine between any levels of monitoring, which is fantastic, especially as the business grows. However, kind of going back to the reporting aspect, and again, this is the change in the pedigrees. Anytime someone says a report, my immediate mind goes to, well, how about seeing the data live at all times? You don't have to wait for your end of the day report. You can see your progression of your data as the day progresses along. You don't have to wait for the end of the day report. Now, if people like that, Mosaic can do it, but you don't have to wait for it. And do you want to wait for it? Because it's such a normal way of thinking, is that, hey, can you just run this report? And then my mind goes to, well, how about you just watch the live data and you can see it whenever you want? You want to do it while you're finishing your lunch? You want to do it before you go home? You don't have to wait for an email. You just pull it up and there it is.
Yeah, and I think where a lot of people get to, and that's a great point, Paul, where you can see everything live, everything's coming in streaming, everything is in your face. Where reporting really comes down to the better answer here is over time, right? Root cause reporting, seeing trends that are coming out. These are all things that Mosaic does very simply. And having that ability to bring that back in and see that in a report, I think is one of the most helpful things, at least from my perspective. It's one of the most helpful things as well. Live reporting is obviously, let's fix it right now. Trend reporting becomes something that not a lot of people have the ability to see right now.
Yeah. I mean, trending is awesome. I mean, I love it so much because, especially as we move into OTT realm, what you consider, it's not a red or a green scenario to say like I'm good or I'm bad. It may depend on how many customers you have or what devices those customers are using. I mean, a slow OTT stream on one device, maybe a Fire tablet, is not equal measure to that of an iPad. And you need to understand what your nominal delivery metrics are and what your non-nominal metrics are. And those aren't a line drawn in a sand. That's you need to see the whole picture to make better business decisions around what you do. And Mosaic is absolutely fabulous at it. And I love working with customers to show them that and to see those lights go on to say, oh, I can do this. And I can also do this over here. So I can merge my new, old, and things I haven't thought of without any trouble whatsoever.
And that's the funny part, is that you say that, because a lot of our customers start with a problem and they fix that problem with Mosaic and they go, oh, wait, can you add my security cameras in there? My door key code can't on there. Can you make a switch if somebody opens a door and walks in and there's a camera there? Can you see the Alexa and have it turn on lights for you and things like, not the Alexa part, but all the other stuff. We've been pushed to do a lot of this stuff and keep expanding on what is actually possible. And I think that's the thing that a lot of potential people looking for NMS systems, because it's such a kind of a vague word, I guess, or a vague acronym, because it really is not what NMS is thought to be. We're always been in the space of controlling, satellite dishes out in the field somewhere, and that stuff was really the start of how we did that, right, Dave?
Oh yeah. I mean, in fact, actually, James and I and Joel came out of satellite command and control and kind of took that to the broadcast as how, the company started. And, 10 years ago, that was the primary delivery chain was static.
And because NMS has always been thought of as that, I think people are too micro-focused or blinded to the fact that it really is more of an umbrella system to be able to touch all these extra stuff. One of the things we've talked about is the ITS guys. They all have switches and things in the background that are all talking all the time. Well, and because of ST2110 and because of compressed video sources and because of compressed audio sources, all that now is not running through a traditional video switcher or audio switcher of some kind. It's all running through an IT switch. And of course, that becomes part of the chain, right? That's for anybody.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that, it's amazing to me, the progression over the years and the concepts that come along with it, and Mosaic has stayed in lockstep with every new item. And something that maybe people don't realize is, DevOps is a methodology, right? But what's great about Mosaic, and I love it so much, is that, online definitional change is just fantastic because you can push out changes to the system. You don't have to wait for a maintenance window. You can, but you don't have to. And then if something were to go, maybe you made a mistake or somebody else made a mistake, or you're like, that didn't really work out. The ability to revert those changes using repositories is absolutely flawlessly easy. So nobody has to go none in the way of being waiting to wake up at 1 a.m. to do work, because Mosaic is built around the idea that you can make changes to the system. The system will progress with your ability to grow. And if something were made in a mistake, then you just revert back to the working version. These are concepts that are born within DevOps, but Mosaic's been doing it for 13 years, and there's no slowing down on that respect. And the ability to develop and deploy at a faster pace is great. And as a services team, it makes my job and my team's job much easier and much less worrisome to deploy changes because there's really no concern there.
Yeah, that's also kind of fits into one of the updates that we did for Mosaic 10 is our enhanced editor support. Provide an editor that goes with Mosaic. And this editor is utilized to update these extension points. And so really, Mosaic's never been a silo on its own. I mean, it was originated as a manager of managers, as a connector between pieces and pulling in data from all these pieces, bringing them all together, and then trying to identify what that combination means. If it boils down to a single I'm on air or I'm not on air, and then be able to drill down to that extra information, because that information is a combination of these pieces. And to get this information, we have built-in drivers and northbound interfaces, translators to grab all this data. But the question is, okay, a new system comes out. How do I get access to this brand new system? Or it's a internal only spreadsheet, internal only bespoke HTTP system. How do I get access to this data? And the answer typically is we don't have to do any software development or anything like that. We utilize our extension points. Mosaic is highly extensible, and you just add in a new driver to access data, a new translator to grab in that new configuration. And part of our Mosaic 10 update was access to your data is very important, and we want to make that faster and easier to happen. And so with our enhanced editor support, our editor, will give you, syntax highlighting, autocomplete, but it also, as Paul was saying, you want to have a repository, you want Mosaic connected to Git, and you want to be able to update your changes. Well, the editor also can just connect into your repository. I want to create a new branch, or I want to basically create this package of updates that wants to be deployed. I can make these edits, can make sure, run them line by line debug within my local system, and then go ahead, push that up and let that change roll down into Mosaic. You can have it automatic, you can have it manual, however you want to set up your pipeline. And then you have Mosaic update. And the nice thing, Mosaic, easy to roll back. I mean, anybody who's used any of this configuration support, you can easily roll back, revert these changes or anything. For Mosaic, it's baked in, like, to the point where if you do an upgrade, completely different software version, I went from Mosaic 8 to now I'm in Mosaic 10, and I want to revert back to Mosaic 8. We completely separate those. And it's not like a lot of these systems where it overwrote the old version. So I've now been destroyed. I can't get back. So it is a big deal. This, you just, okay, turn that off, turn this one back on. Let's go back to the old one and we'll look at this again. Its concept is baked throughout that says, I want to make sure I can easily get these changes in and I can easily get these changes out. And that, what we call OLDC, online definition of change, automatically reloading your configuration on the fly, pulling in these new devices on the fly, pulling in this new data on the fly. That's all just baked into the system. And really, a lot of our big pushes is just to make that easier, to provide more built-in features to it, provide more access to this data, and make it so you can integrate these things a lot quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I love it because really, I mean, you talked about drivers and you talked about a little bit, you touched on translators and northbound interfaces. I mean, the greatest thing about this is from a services standpoint, when a customer comes up and says, hey, do you integrate with, Slack, right? Like the answer is immediately yes. And it took all of, 20 minutes to integrate in with Slack. And it's not like Slack was baked into Mosaic. Mosaic is so extensible and so implementable that like the answer is almost always unequivocally yes. And then it's a very short time from yes to proof to polish to delivery is just small steps along the way. So it's not like when someone says, oh, I really wish your system had this XYZ support. It's like as a services and designing and architecture and trying to figure out what the customer needs, I'm not bound by any real limitations. I'm only bound by my imagination to implement their solution or come up with a solution that meets both of our needs. And then it's just a process of a few steps to go and get that done. Case in point, right? Like people use Prometheus and they're like, hey, can Mosaic fit into your stack? Yep, we could just create a Prometheus endpoint and you can scrape Mosaic. Like this is not something beyond the realm of our wheelhouse. Like it's ingrained in the pedigree of the product, and Mosaic 10 just takes it a full step further by allowing us to do that. From the services standpoint, we spent a lot of time revamping our REST drivers because we wanted to make it more configurable, right? Like
everything. Yeah. Everything is moving to software based. And so REST is, taken over, as where, Bill was talking about was originally, just LEDs, then it moved to, we'll talk SNMP, well now REST. And so, big push this last release was just making it easier to integrate with REST devices.
Yeah. And it's not like the customer couldn't, the customer can obviously, and I would love for them to discuss all of their design choices with the services team because I enjoy that part of the job. But really, if they have a software development team, we've made it so easy that I would almost feel that they would be bored because it just comes down to a bit of configuration and off they go.
And that's so interesting, Paul, that you talk about that stuff and the fact that you were talking about how we use Slack and how easily it was to develop to Slack. And I think that's something that we should touch on as well. HTML5 obviously gives you all that great control and any device, but so many people today, and there's probably an age level of where that happens.
Are we over it?
No, not yet. Not quite. I think we're still on the Gen X generation that wants more texting capabilities. But as you talked about that, and any one of you can answer this along with Paul, Slack was an easy fit. What are the many other abilities that we can go into. I mean, it's Teams, SMS, what is it and how have we integrated with us some of that stuff?
I mean, I think that goes back to what we were talking about before is, Mosaic fitting in with the entire ecosystem. And, a lot of the, well, not a lot, but a portion of the Mosaic 10 release was easier integration with those. So I get asked a lot of times, well, do you guys have a ticketing system? And I'm like, there are so many great ticketing systems out there. Why would you want us to create a really bad one instead of, you can get Jira, you can get Opsgenie, you can use ServiceNow, and through very simple configuration now, because again, going back to REST, everything's REST based. It is so easy to tie directly into it. What is it, MoogSoft? I mean, Mosaic can be, the head of the ecosystem, or it just fits in. However you guys, customers see fit.
Right. And I think that's great from like a design standpoint, because we always get asked, well, I have this system over here. Awesome. Like fantastic. Your people know that system. We slide right in, and nobody really needs to be none the wiser. And everybody just gains the proficiency of having more control and more data, because Mosaic, although like a lot of NMSs are just monitoring only, right? Or people use it as monitoring only systems, like Prometheus or Nagios, there's not a lot of control and automation. One thing we haven't really touched on is that not only can we integrate with items like that, Slack, but Slack could be an awesome integration for saying, hey, all of this equipment failed, and I'm going to now notify Slack, maybe because this company doesn't want to use emails. Or a great example, as a customer, we had one time where we were all working, and then we dropped to generator power. But there's obviously a switch time in there, so it would go to tech power for a short period of time. Well, it happened to be that our facilities team had accidentally turned off tech power through some maintenance, and all of a sudden we just dropped everything on one side. And the only reason we knew was because we were like, what just happened? And we could smell the diesel burning. And then Mosaic came back up, and we started getting all these alarms and all these items. And obviously that's an edge case. But with Mosaic 10 fitting into facilities is just a click away. It's not like, hey, I have to go buy a facility system, and I have to buy a broadcast system, and I have to buy an ITS system. Mosaic can just slide right in there and be like, hey, you wanted to know that you dropped to generator power? Like Mosaic can just fit right in there. Like you don't have to do that. And that would have saved everybody an hour worth of stressing out, trying to bring everything back up and try to figure out who to call and what happened and where did it go. And the postmortems were terrible, right? But that's life in a broadcast system.
Well, and that's and I think that goes back to the root cause analysis of everything, right? Once you have Mosaic covering your facility, it's never going to be a question. The live updates, as you've mentioned before, you're going to know, well, as long as they don't pull all the power from everything in the facility, right. You'll know pretty quickly.
Well, hopefully you have Tech A and Tech B and you have dual power, but those are business financial decisions that each customer has to wrap their mind around.
Exactly. But at least with Mosaic, not only you're going to see live with your Mosaic window what is actually going on. You've lost, B because, well, this device is no longer on, and you're going to be able to see that. Well, in the report, postmortem is going to be really simple. Yep, here's what all happened. I saw it all happening live. Here you go.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
So we just had kind of what I think one of the most obscure requests ever, but we had a customer who wants us to monitor if their ServiceNow database is wrong. We'll monitor it and then notify it through MoogSoft. So somehow we were a bent pipe, but because we can see and integrate with everything, that was the course of action.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I keep saying it, but that's just absolutely what's great when you design something, is that there's really no limitations. And sometimes bad decisions get made because you're literally boundless, and then you learn, hey, maybe that wasn't the right decision. Maybe we don't integrate with the bent pipe. But honestly, again, Mosaic is right there laying in wait for you to say, okay, I want to change my methodology, and it can change with you. You don't have to go to a new software platform to change that methodology, because Mosaic is flexible enough to change with your design decisions as they grow or as they happen. And from a services standpoint, it's great.
And Paul, just real briefly, that's a great point. And I think that something that gets lost. I mean, we just had 2 customers move from one multi-viewer manufacturer, hardware-based, to another multi-viewer manufacturer, hardware-based. And to the operators in the end, it was seamless. They had no idea what happened, except for probably got a little bit better picture on one than the other. But what does that speak to? The fact that their interfaces are no longer dictated by the manufacturer that makes the product,
That's
but
right.
for the way that the operators need to work. So then you can choose best in breed as opposed to, well, we already know this interface.
Yeah, I mean, that's great because with SMPTE 2110 and all of that, multi-viewers that can't deal with uncompressed video maybe go the way of the waste. And to the operators, they don't have to learn a new system. Mosaic will just take all of that control and all of that implementation and hide it behind an agnostic platform to where nobody has to be taught about a new system. And that means like new hires or as people move around the country or just as general things change, you don't have to spend time reteaching your ops teams. They can worry about what they need to worry about and not have to deal with, oh God, we have a new system in the house today. Now I got to figure out the complexities of this system as opposed to that system. And just quickly here to kind of lead back to this is that like Mosaic and the web and all of the integrations that came with 110, a customer asked, can we do 2-factor authentication? Answer is yes. And we did it. And it wasn't like it was a monumental feat to do something like that. It was a simple ask the question, do it, right? It wasn't hard because Mosaic allows that flexibility. The Joel's team and what Joel's team does is allow our services team and allow our customers to pretty much be limited by our imagination.
To be the answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the answer is pretty much always yes. The question is that exactly what you want to do? Is that you should do that? But you always can do it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, listen, I wanted to get to something that I know is on many of our customers and many people in the world's mind, and it's security. We just talked a whole lot about how we integrate and touch many different things and put it out there on the web with everything that you can do. Let's talk about security. What security features do we have to, hopefully prevent some of the stuff that we're seeing in the world right now?
I mean, we've always taken security very seriously. We've always had a model of a separation of authentication and authorization, which kind of gives you that separation of, yes, you can, what can you do? So, your standard authentication, we've always, connected in with systems like LDAP and whatnot to be able to actually log in, to actually authenticate your user. And as Paul already mentioned, we added in 2-factor authentication to get that extra identification to say, yes, by this name and password or by this key, if I think you can, let me double check and actually text someone, email somebody to make sure and double check that you can actually access it. And then once you've actually gotten through this authentication mechanism, you say, okay, yes, you can do something. Now, what is that? And then that's where we have our authorization lockdowns. And that's our authorization lockdowns we have across the gambit of various types you can do, but on the very basic level of, can this host even connect? Are you even allowed from this computer to connect in if you want to be super restrictive like that? Or it could be something like you have only one login at a time, multiple logins at a time, or something of that restrictive of like some kind of based on number of logins. Or it's just simple of this person only has rights to read, only has rights to access these certain displays, only has access to these executions. But the interesting part is where it becomes really configurable and very interesting is that as we add these new connections to new systems, as we add this new access to data and new control mechanisms, we can lock those down individually. So, you have, let's say, access to view everything, and you have access to, swap fail over to different chains or something like that, but you don't have access to turn something off. You can have fine grain down to specific actions or specific automations, or global. You have all this control of however detailed of this security authorization you want, or however vague of the authorization you want. So the idea is you have your multiple steps just to get in. And then after that, you can also individually lock down those accounts. And going even further, our flexible deployment structure allows us we can take something like the web server and put it on an edge node somewhere that is, accessible to the wider world. But the main Mosaic server that is actually doing the processing, is actually doing the work, you put that on an internal area, and you can actually secure between the two. You can, our deployment structures allow multiple servers, multiple web servers. And so you can have, internal, more trusted systems, external, less trusted systems, and have various security between the two. So it allows you to, if you really want to lock things down and really secure it, and say, oh, these computers, even if this area got breached, we have secondary areas to block. And the idea is, one idea that's coming a lot from the security breaches that are happening in the world is the kind of concept of zero trust. You just you go from system to system, and you don't trust that, just the fact that they got into this one system, you're okay, you can go to the next system. And so the idea is to be able to lock that down between systems. So no matter what, even if there is a breach, you minimize that breach. You lock that down so you don't have that flowing effect to other pieces and other systems. So your email server that had, the Exchange exploit doesn't affect your broadcast system, doesn't affect, various other pieces of your systems. So yeah, that we definitely integrated additional support for security. And a lot of it is kind of back-end upgrades to standard security platforms, upgrade to TLS, upgrade to all of our SSL and everything like that. So a lot of it is not really user seen, except for the authorization, the two-factor authentication and authorization. Everything is much more user focusable. What's up?
I said the whole point of the encryption is so that no user can see.
Oh, exactly.
Well, it sounds like there's 100 companies around the world that probably should have spent their ransom on us. They wouldn't have to pay ransom.
I don't know what to say to that, and I'm not going to address it.
But, Joe brought up a really great point, and that's something that when you're dealing with design with a customer, or you're dealing internally with your internal customers, is trying to define who gets what access where. And a lot of times people think broadly, and they're like, well, I don't want them to see this display. But I think what's great about Mosaic is that they can still see that display. They may not be able to take any action within the display. So you don't have to arbitrarily limit sex of your company to this column of business to this column of business. Somebody that say wants to do ITS work and get a view, they can see the edge nodes that their ITS systems are touching. They may not be able to look deeply. They may not be able to control those systems. They may not be able to view any proprietary data within those systems, but we can give you a high level status that says, hey, the things that are connecting between these ITS systems are functioning properly. And the maintenance you just did in the middle, totally fine. So you don't have to square away your column of business to just the things that they manage. You can say, hey, these are the things your systems affect, and Mosaic can show you those, but we can get as granular as to say, you can only go so far. And I think that sometimes customers, they think too broadly and say, well, they just don't get to see that. But we can tell them, hey, no, they can see it. They just can't do anything with it. Or we can move the metrics to just high level and just give you a status if you don't want them looking, surface deep. And I think that flexibility there in our security systems allows kind of internal customers to understand each other, right? Like how many times in business have I come across, well, that's just a network issue. And then they leave it there. And then nobody follows up with it. And 3 weeks goes by. And then all of a sudden that's a ticking time bomb. But the network guys don't know either because they don't get to see the system. They're just looking myopically at their systems and say everything's working great. The problem is that like those two pieces of business create animosity between each other, and Mosaic can bring them together and say, hey, you can work better by seeing a little bit of each other's stuff.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that's really important, and that we've had customers tell us is that their biggest job isn't installing Mosaic or even getting it up and running on systems. It's convincing the people in those silos that it's not going to replace them and it's not going to take away their job. It's actually going to be a joiner for everybody and give everybody the ability to see what is happening on the one thing that makes them money, every piece of that facility. And it's great that you mentioned that, because once the IT people get to see what is actually happening in the rest of the facility, because we all know IT people can tend to be, well, it's all connected. Everything looks great on the ports, all look good and all that. But, there's an issue with video, because now video is going to be riding on that backbone almost exclusively going forward. They need to be a part of the overall conversation and not just they're the IT department. No, they're the broadcast chain now. They need to see everything, and having the ability to scale down with security to what they can touch, because I don't know if video engineers really want them, messing with frame syncs and up-down cross converters or anything like that, and vice versa. The IT guys don't want TV guys touching their ports.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's crazy what can happen, right? People don't think, like when we're talking with customers in the network realm, like what Mosaic can provide you is say you want Mosaic to talk to your switches, and you want Mosaic to take a snapshot of your configuration on every switch and every router. And maybe you want Mosaic to then upload that to Git for you. And then you can do differences between your configurations, so that a maintenance that happened last week and a maintenance that happened this week, Mosaic can go ahead and build you the process for which you now have maintenance and control. So Mosaic has now turned from a monitoring system to being part of your maintenance process. And we've now just made it easier for you. Or say you need to do a multicast trace back through your systems. If we're talking to those switches, we can now show you live traces of the multicast flows through your routers and switches, right? But people don't always think of that. They view it as a cloud. And when we're talking with customers, they go, well, that's that other team's problem. But you know what? I can show you what that other team is doing, and that other team will then benefit, because now they can spend their maintenance hours making the systems more efficient, better, doing those upgrades that they've put off because there's too much work in every night to do these little maintenances. Mosaic has now just freed you up to making your product better. There is that initial fear as humans to be like, oh, it's going to replace us. And back when I was an architect at the other company, the best thing I wanted to say was, no, I'm freeing you up to make our product better so that more customers come along. And if more customers come along, we can grow. And Mosaic's going to allow you to spend your time not doing mundane business items, but allow you to make the system better, more stable, do those security upgrades so that we aren't hitting by ransomware. And I think we sometimes lose sight because we're so overburdened with maintenance that people tend to say, well, this is the way I've done it for 5 years. This is the way I can only do it. But that's not the case.
Yeah. And that kind of wraps right back around to when you're talking about taking the helping people ease the pain with a lot of things. One of the things that Dave Stewart had said was he intends to have his report show up in managers' boxes in the morning, and operators watch the live Mosaic windows so that they know exactly what's happening. And that's really where it all kind of wraps around to, is that, we are always touching a number of different things with the highest level security as we possibly can have, and then providing information to the rest of the people so that their jobs are less complicated. And I think that's the best part about how Mosaic really interacts inside of a facility, because we are making it less complicated. We're not having you go and jump through a bunch of hoops to go find data. we're bringing that all to the one screen sitting in front of you that you're probably sitting in front of all day long, and then alerting you on every other device that is around, just like all your friends are.
Yeah, in Mosaic. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I would say some of the things we've been doing is, especially with Mosaic 10, was making it so you actually don't have to have eyes on glass the entire time. You have maybe a knock operator, but you don't have to have eyes on glass. So Slack integration, you get notified, okay, and
real time.
It sends a link to you. You click the link, you got the view, and you can see it. It's not, you're not now just staring at a screen. You're reacting to things.
Right. And I think I was going to say Mosaic 10 is perfect for that. And that's a good concept, right? Because nobody wants to see an alert storm and then go, God, what do I do to figure this out? Well, Mosaic can make those deterministic items. And, Mosaic 10 has made that easier for us to do that, especially as a services team. And by nature of our business model, any customer, anything we have access to as a services team outside of direct access to Joel is the customer has access to it as well. And, integration with ServiceNow, like creating an actionable alert in Mosaic that turns into an actionable ticket that can be handled by a team, or many actionable alerts being compressed down into one actionable event, going into MoogSoft or Mosaic, doing that correlation internally and doing automatic switching, so that actionable alert turns into a post-mortem investigation. So now you're not taking outages on customers. You've failed over to your redundant paths or failed over to your redundant systems. And now the teams can be spent doing the post-mortem of what took place, not being stressed out on a call with 5 managers going, why are our customers still in outage? These are things Mosaic can lessen that burden and then make your systems better.
Great point, Paul. Great point. Listen, we're at the bottom of the hour. I'd like to thank everybody who's joined us on the webinar, and especially like to thank our great team, Paul, Joel, David. Really thank all of you for joining us today. For me, it was really informative. I mean, I learned something every time I'm on a call with you guys, mostly because I have no idea what you're talking about in a lot of cases. I know what it means. I just don't know what the bits and parts underneath are. Thank you all for joining. Listen, you can find a bunch of clips from our past webinars and also the full webinars on our YouTube channel. We'll put the link, you can find the link through our website, mncsoftware.com. And then also coming up on tentatively the 18th, Dave will be back with James Bloomfield and myself, and we will talk about facility integration and what the ROI means to you in the end. Guys, you want to say thank you and bye-bye?
Probably be a sneak peek of a new product offering we have coming out, at least a discussion.
Yeah, so we can say what that is.
Ooh. Yeah, so we have a new product coming out called Tessera. And this new product kind of covers the gap of configuration management. Really, the kind of super brief overview is Mosaic is not necessarily isolated to model your entire system, or it can model your entire system, but it's not necessarily the single point where you want to manage that configuration. So Tessera really provides that and allows you to have all of your configuration, model your systems, keep track of all your devices and everything within there, and has seamless integration with Mosaic. So you can have various teams manage your configuration from the standpoint of your system services, your flows, and any of your other various configuration items, and move that back and forth into Mosaic.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for Tessera, and I really think the businesses we all understand that a lot of data is shared between engineers and operations through spreadsheets. Did you get version 2 of my spreadsheet? Did you get version 5 of my spreadsheet? And Tessera bridges that gap for those companies that want that, and it also bridges the gap for companies that use ServiceNow and don't want to pay all the exorbitant extras that come along with a ticketing system. Maybe they want to use Jira and Tessera because they both merge together like that. And it's just, Tessera provides a solution to so many companies when it comes to data management, it's sometimes shocking to me to see how some companies store their data, and it usually ends up in a spreadsheet somewhere, which is definitely not the right way or the most efficient way to go.
But yeah, so we'll probably, I imagine we'll go into some in-depth in that at our next webinar, because that'll be right around our first official release of Tessera. So.
Well, and that's great. And of course, after that, we have coming up very quickly, we'll be one of the handful of people, I guess, at NAB this year, because it's really, really small. So, you can always email me, myself, Dave, or James to set up an appointment. And of course, we will have a full product demo of Mosaic, but also of Tessera. So you can see it. We'll be in Central Hall. I forget what the actual number is. Oh, LV. No, that's not it.
LV, Las Vegas.
Yeah, Las Vegas. I forget what the actual what our actual booth number is, but you can find us. I mean, there's only 2 halls. It can't go very far, right? So we'll see you guys there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you guys for joining me and David, and we will see you next month.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.